All right, let's move on, guys. Now let's quickly navigate to the portal. Let me give you a quick walkthrough of the portal and show you how do we deploy sensors. I will also share because we are running short of time. So from my previous training, I will share a recorded session with you wherein I'm deploying, wherein I'm onboarding a Windows and Linux endpoint into CrowdStrike. And I would expect you guys to spend next 5 days, which is weekdays, whenever you get time, to actually try to onboard endpoints into CrowdStrike. Windows endpoint onboarding is quite simple. You just need to download the endpoint, the Falcon sensor on the endpoint, and install it. But Linux would require certain commands. So I will share the SOP. I'll share the video, a recorded session with you. Go ahead and do that. And then on next session, we will do that activity wherein I'll show you how to do it. Let's log into the console now. We'll look at the deployment part from the architecture perspective, probably in the next session. So all of you, please log into CrowdStrike console.
Prabhu, in lab, are we going to make any changes over the network side also? Means like
Uh,
for sensors, we need to open a connection over the firewall. So what are the prerequisites which ports are need to open from the outside? What are the destination the URLs required to open?
yeah, that's what I told you, that the sensor uses port 443 for both incoming and outgoing traffic. And by default, port 443 for incoming and outgoing is enabled in all the organizations. However, if you have a restricted environment wherein you don't explicitly enable unrestricted access to internet on port 443, in that case, CrowdStrike provides you a list of IP addresses that you need to whitelist in your perimeter firewall or DMZ firewall. So it will not restrict any incoming and outgoing traffic from endpoint sensor to CrowdStrike cloud instance and from CrowdStrike cloud instance to endpoint sensor. And that information I'll show you on the documentation.
Okay.
Okay. Let's log into the console so that I can show you where the documentation is, because access to documentation is from the console itself, not outside of it. Who is this for? Pujita. Okay. Oh, is it? Oh, all right. Is everyone logged into the console?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Let me also log in. All right. So I'm logged into the console. Hope my screen is visible to everyone. This is how the console homepage looks like of CrowdStrike portal. This is the default dashboard. Now, if you look at this default dashboard, we see certain information. For example, if you see crowd score. Now, what is this crowd score? Based on how effective your security configurations are, CrowdStrike will give you a score, will give a score to each customer. And higher is the score, greater is the configuration. So right now you can see my score is 0. Why my score is 0? Because in this dashboard or in this console or in this specific instance of CrowdStrike, I have specifically using it for delivering this training session. So right now there is hardly any configuration here because of which my score is 0. But as in when I enable onboard additional endpoints, do certain security configurations, my score will continue to increase. My objective is to have a score of 90% and above. I cannot get 100 out of 100. No, security cannot be 100% because if I try to achieve 100%, I would unnecessarily end up spending more because in order to get 100%, CrowdStrike would expect me to purchase SIEM module, identity module, this module, and that module. Then only it would give me 100% and would expect me to configure that also. So if I have 90% and above, it's a great score. So that's my CrowdStrike score. Then comes new detections. Now, new detections basically means that you have certain endpoints. Those endpoints have agents or Falcon sensor running on them. Sensor is continuously monitoring the endpoint activity and sending that data to CrowdStrike instance. This is my cloud instance. So how am I accessing CrowdStrike console? I'm accessing it through a browser-based URL. This is a URL. So it's a SaaS instance, software as a service instance, and this instance is actually receiving all the data from my endpoints. And this instance is not dedicated to me. It's like, so cloud is a shared infrastructure, which means the data that is visible in this instance relates to my customer ID, relates to my account. Similarly, other customers will have the same UI and they will see a different data that belongs to their environment. So CrowdStrike will ensure that each customer has a separation. It cannot happen, though it's a multi-tenant environment wherein multiple tenants, multiple customers can use at the same time, but they have a isolation and separation layer. So there are 15 detections in the, in the last. Now here you can see the time frame also. So these are 15 detections which are there. Then some file hashes have been detected. So as part of these 15 detections, I could see some 16 file hashes here. It says number 16. So some 16 file hashes have been detected, and those file hashes could be malicious. Now that's my discretion as an incident responder. When I looked into these detections, when I investigate, I may end up deciding that it's false positive. It's not actually a detection. It's a expected behavior in my environment. Or I may end up deciding it as a true positive, and then I'll take some remedial actions against these detections, either include them into a block list or create an exception for them. That's something that I will do as an incident responder. Then prevented malware by host. Has there been any malware activity on this account in the last 7 days? No data found because there is no host. Then comes total Overwatch analyzed event. Now, what is this Overwatch? This is CrowdStrike is working in the backend, and CrowdStrike is constantly monitoring the customers environment as well as external threats, and CrowdStrike is doing this capability. So since I have Overwatch module enabled, CrowdStrike will also constantly monitor my environment for any threat which is a 0-day attack or which has the potential to corrupt other customers also, so that CrowdStrike can probably update its sensor accordingly. Then Overwatch endpoint hunting leads 0. Overwatch endpoints detection triggers 0 because I don't have any endpoints. Then the score over a period of time is 0, no score. More detections. These are the recent detections that you can see, and these detections correspond to one host only. This is a sample host or pilot host that I have enabled in the console just to check whether onboarding is working fine or not in this account because it's a new account. Then comes detections by tactics. Now there are three terminologies that we use as part of Maitre framework, which is tactics, techniques, and procedure, TTP. So tactics are methods adopted by threat actors to spread cyber attack or to execute a threat. That's what tactics is. For example, if I'm a threat actor and if I want to get your personal data, I will draft an email and I will send that email to you. And in the email body, I will create a sense of urgency. The body will say, your account will get disabled today if you don't update your information. Please click on the link to update the information. So I'm creating a sense of urgency to manipulate, to encourage, or to convince you, or to force you to click on that link and provide the information. Now, what is this attack? Can somebody tell me what is the type of attack that I just described?
Phishing.
Absolutely. This is a phishing attack. But
Phishing.
what's the tactic here? Tactic is
They
that
use
that
they
email that
use
I've sent you, right? So tactic is
Credential
that
harvesting.
email. So what is the technique? Technique is phishing. Tactic is email that I've sent you. And what is the procedure? Procedure is that information which I've dropped in the email so that I can get information from you. So when you receive detections in CrowdStrike, since it has it has alignment with Maitre, it will be able to tell you what tactics, techniques, and procedure was adopted by threat actors to execute that threat. That's what detections by tactics is. Now, this is what you get to see in the console, in the dashboard. If I click on this full screen mode, it will come on a full screen. So what organizations do, or what SOC teams do, the SOC admins, they basically create a dashboard with all the, now they are known as widgets. These rectangular boxes or square boxes that you see here, they are known as widgets. So I can customize these widgets and I can have important information displayed or visible to me at all time, which I want to see, which my SOC team would need access to or would need to look into. So I can customize this also. I can add additional information here. So I'll, over here, you can see settings. So over here, I can change the display, stay signed in. I can duplicate it. I can do additional things. So when I talk about the dashboard, I'll show you how to create a dashboard or how. So this is the how to create a custom dashboards I'll talk about. This is known as your activity dashboard, which is by default visible to all the customers. Now you can go ahead and you can take a print of this dashboard. There's a printer button here, and you can also you can also have your, so by default CrowdStrike is configured to sign you out after 15 minutes of inactivity on the console. If I just leave my mouse like this and do nothing on the system, within a couple of minutes, CrowdStrike will sign me out from this console. But if this screen is open in SOC team, if it is open on a bigger monitor, obviously you cannot expect people to click on it all the time. In that case, you can click on settings here and you can say display and you can say stay signed in. Now, what will happen with this setting? Whichever screen this dashboard will be visible on, it will continue to remain there. It will not sign out from the console. So that's the setting which we primarily do for displays SOC teams. And we can also duplicate it. So if we want to create a separate dashboard, we can duplicate this dashboard also. So dashboarding is something that I will talk about later on. Right now, I'll just say no, don't stay signed in. Okay. So these are the setting options. Now let's understand this console from left to right, top to bottom, and center. Let's start from left to right. So these horizontal three lines, this is the menu. When you click on them, it opens the menu. And this menu contains all the capabilities of CrowdStrike. There are, when you open the menu, you will always see two vertical bars. The first vertical bar will have the modules enabled. So all the modules that you are subscribed to, you will see those modules here. And if you are subscribed to a module, that module will be shown as yellow. Yellow means you're subscribed to the module. If there is any module that is not showing as yellow, it basically means that you are either not subscribed to that module or you would require some additional configurations to be done before you start to consume that module or before you start to configure that module. So for example, you can see in cloud security, I have this option as I'm saying there is a blue tick here. It's blue. Instead of yellow, it is blue. So if I click on cloud security and click on integrations, it asks me to click on account registrations. I will need to register the account because I will need to onboard a cloud account for this module to work or to provide security. So it will take me to the registration over here and it will say you have not added any account. Please go ahead and add an account. Now, this integration is something that I will talk about in cloud security module whenever we get into that module. So let's come back to this. So this is how you see. So you can see shallow AI. Shallow AI is enabled, which means I can use shallow AI for all the modules that I will cover in this training session. Next gen SIEM is enabled. Endpoint security is enabled. Investigation is enabled. Asset inventory is enabled. Host setup and management is enabled. Support and resources is enabled. And few capabilities are not enabled. For example, CrowdStrike Store. Now, when you click on this capability, it takes you to a separate module, a separate dashboard where you see CrowdStrike Store. So there is no question of enabling and disabling it. It is like a marketplace. Here you can look for solutions which are available, search for solutions. Let's say if I want to search for Qualys, if there is anything from Qualys, so I can see that yes, I have an integration available for Qualys. So Falcon exposure management data ingestion built for Qualys VMDR API, which means I can bring data from Qualys into CrowdStrike console. It says easily ingest Qualys data into Falcon exposure management to unify vulnerability management. So if I'm using Qualys and I want to ingest Qualys vulnerabilities into CrowdStrike because my SOC team uses CrowdStrike as a single console, I can go ahead and configure this data ingestion. So this is my CrowdStrike store, which is nothing but a marketplace that contains access to different solutions. Now, let's say I want to integrate CrowdStrike with a SIEM solution, let's say with Splunk. So let's see if there is anything available from Splunk with CrowdStrike. No, no results. It has no integration with Splunk. Is there anything available for Sentinel? You need to search for it and you will see it. Yes. So you can see data connector built for Sentinel. So now it says ingest Microsoft Sentinel data for analysis and investigation. So you can bring data from Microsoft Sentinel to CrowdStrike NG SIEM and you can analyze those data here also. That's your, so here, whatever in the CrowdStrike store, if you see any software or application available, you can either use that software and application to export your data, CrowdStrike data to that application, or bring data from that application to CrowdStrike. And definitely there's a cost for that integration. And if there is any cost for that integration, it will be communicated to you at the time of configuration. However, for data ingestion, they don't charge anything. But for some solutions, there could be a cost also. So if I type Palo Alto, let's see if there is anything available from Palo Alto. So you can see I have a couple of connectors available. Palo Alto Networks Data Connector. I can bring Falcon inside XDR detections with firewall data. Palo Alto Networks S connector, Prisma connector, and other connectors are also available. So that's your CrowdStrike store, which is nothing but a marketplace that provides you access to additional softwares and applications outside of CrowdStrike that you can integrate with CrowdStrike, or you can integrate them with CrowdStrike, or you can integrate CrowdStrike with those solutions. Both options are available and it differs from solution to solution. So that's your CrowdStrike crowd store that you need to be aware of. Now, whichever capability you are in, every time. So for example, right now I'm in CrowdStrike store. It shows me that I'm in CrowdStrike store. If I go back on my main console, if I click on once again, uh, let's say dashboard.
Hi Raghuveer, I have one doubt.
Mhm.
I have seen most of the organization are using Splunk with CrowdStrike and EDR with the Microsoft Sentinel. But in the CrowdStrike store, how the Splunk data connector is not available?
No, so
Any
which
any
basic
other medium like
so
we
which
can
basically
connect through the API or anything?
no, no, it basically means you cannot bring data from Splunk into CrowdStrike. If you
Okay,
want to bring CrowdStrike data into Splunk, then the connector will be on Splunk side, not at CrowdStrike side.
okay,
That's what it means, right? So we don't have any capability to bring Splunk data into CrowdStrike. That's the reason connector is not there. But for
Okay.
Sentinel, we can bring data. Hence, I could show you the connector.
Okay. Got it.
All right. Okay, let's look at the capabilities once again. So we have Sherlock AI, next-gen SIEM, endpoint security, cloud security, counter adversary operations, investigate. These are all the capabilities. Now you don't see identity capability. So when we do the identity, I will have that capability enabled from CrowdStrike. Now, on the second vertical bar basically shows you some common options plus an outcome of these options. So if I click on endpoint security, I'll see all the endpoint security capabilities which are available. Now, this is what we are going to configure from top to bottom as part of this training. We'll configure all of them. So we'll configure firewall policy, we'll configure device control policy, we'll configure indicators of attack, we'll configure exclusions where CrowdStrike is interrupting with certain legitimate business processes and applications. We can create exclusions, we can configure IOC management, wherein we can block certain websites, URLs, domains, file hashes, and all of it. So under endpoint security, we'll configure everything, right? Now, CrowdStrike is also making certain changes to its UI, wherein it says ends March 9th, 2025. So what CrowdStrike is doing, CrowdStrike is basically, basically deprecating this functionality, which is CrowdScore incidents. It is coming up with additional functionality. That's the reason it says deprecated. And for some functionalities, when you click on certain capabilities, there's a high probability that you see additional information. For example, you can see under next gen SIEM, automated leads, it says new. It basically means that CrowdStrike is informing you that this capability has been recently introduced, probably last week or a month ago. And anything that is going to get deprecated, it says end March 9th, 2026. Why it says incident is getting deprecated? Here it says deprecated. Here it also says deprecated incidents because CrowdStrike is coming with a common console, a common UI that will have incidents from all the security solutions under one UI, which is similar to an XDR capability. That's the reason it shows here, right? So whenever you click on any of the capability, for example, if I click on host setup and management, and I see the result of host setup and management, all the configurations which are available here, you will notice that here it says monitor deployment, new. This capability will basically provide you the visibility into how your deployments are happening. If you are pushing Falcon sensor on 100 endpoints in one go, how many of them have received it? How many of them have received it and configured it and they are reporting into console? If the deployment failed for some of the endpoints, all that will come into monitor deployment. So it's a new capability that they have added. Log scale collector policies. This is related to SIEM. This is a new capability. Sensor downloads updated. It means that CrowdStrike has recently made certain updates to this capability. Installation tokens updated. Newly installed sensors updated. So these capabilities are updated. These capabilities have recently been introduced. Or any capability that is deprecated, that is no more available, will show as deprecated also. So here you see it says deprecated. Now, why it says deprecated? Because if it automatically disappears from the console, it may create a hue and cry situation. Customer may think that my console is not working fine. Customer will unnecessarily raise a support request with CrowdStrike and raise a support incident for it. That is a wastage of time on part of customer and on part of CrowdStrike support. So CrowdStrike will, whenever CrowdStrike needs to deprecate a capability, it will first communicate it to the customer by putting an update against that capability, that this capability will be ending on this date, at least 3 months in advance. So the customer will notice it and they will be aware of that change. And when that date appears, when the date approaches, then they will show it as deprecated for some time so that the customer knows that this capability is deprecated. And then in next couple of days or probably next couple of months, this option will completely disappear from here. So CrowdStrike console is user friendly. They don't give surprises to customers by adding additional capabilities and customer sees something new and they don't know what is in that specific module, or customer all of a sudden are not able to see what they were working a couple of minutes ago, or probably the previous day. So that's how CrowdStrike is communicating it. Now, other than this, CrowdStrike also communicate any changes through this notification icon. So you can see critical alerts and announcements. On the right hand side, you see this bell icon. When you click on this bell icon, you can see all announcements from CrowdStrike and all critical alerts. Now, these critical alerts are not related to your environment. They are related to CrowdStrike as a service. They are related to the world outside of your environment. So any critical alerts, you can click on this. It will take you to CrowdStrike notifications portal, and there it will show you all critical alerts. So there is no critical alert at this moment. Then announcements. If there is any that CrowdStrike is, CrowdStrike wants to communicate, you will see announcements also. So there is no announcement for you. So this is basically for all the customers, critical alerts and announcement. And this way also it shows you to the customer. For example, tag alerts is new. This documentation port is in beta mode. So which means they are doing a lot of changes here. And beta basically means if you use this capability and if something untoward happens, if it corrupts your environment, you cannot blame CrowdStrike for it, because CrowdStrike clearly says any capability which is in beta mode should not be used in production. So that's how this capability works, right? So the three horizontal lines basically opens menu. On the left hand side, left vertical bar, you see all the capabilities which are enabled, all the modules which are enabled for your account, for your customer account. The right hand side shows you the outcome of those modules. So when you click on any of those modules, it shows you the configuration aspects of those modules. Support and resources. Over here, when you click on support and resources, you can basically navigate to CrowdStrike documentation portal. CrowdStrike documentation is not accessible outside of CrowdStrike to the rest of the world. It's intellectual property. And here you can see the documentation. So you can see the documentation is also available based on the region that you have assigned to. Now, if I look for documentation in East Europe 1, and my portal is in US 2, there is a high probability that I may have access to a documentation or to a configuration which is not applicable to my environment. So always remember to access the documentation for the region that you are supporting. That will give you to the point and accurate documentation. There's a high probability that you go into EU documentation and there you look for supported operating system, and it says that Mac is a specific version of Mac OS is supported in this region. And you communicate the same to your customer who is using the CrowdStrike service from US2 region. Then it's a incorrect information. So always look for specific region. So if my console is configured in US2, I will click on US2, and then it will take me to CrowdStrike documentation, which is meant for US2 region or West US region. Now US1 or US2 documentation is same, Europe documentation is same, and government documentation is same. So here it takes me to the documentation. Here I can see all
It's
document.
very due to compliance policy for the each region.
Not exactly related to compliance. It is related to the service, which capability is enabled in which region, and also due to compliance. But compliance will come at the time of configuration. This is more about what capabilities are enabled in a region.
Okay.
As I gave you an example that probably in let's say Mac has come up with, let's say Microsoft Windows has come up with Server 2027, right? Now Server 2027 operating system support is only available in Europe, and your customer is using the cloud instance of US. You go to Europe documentation, see that support for 2027 is available, and you communicate it to your customer and say, sir, server 2027 can be onboarded now. When customer tries to onboard, the onboarding will not work because they will not have a sensor for it. Then this is incorrect information. So
Okay.
as a practitioner, as a consultant and architect, you need to make sure that you refer to the documentation of the region that your customer corresponds to. Make sense? You see what I expect you to do. So I have shared all the documentation, the URLs with you, because from next session, now that we are into the console, in the next session on Saturday, we will start to do the configuration. So what configuration do we do on Saturday, or we start with on Saturday? The first thing on Saturday that we will do is we will start to do the onboarding. So we'll go to host setup and management, and this is where we will go to host management. We will start with Falcon sensor. So we'll go ahead and install Falcon sensor downloads. This is what we are going to do. So we are going to download the sensor on the endpoint that you would have created in AWS account. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to upload a session recording from my previous session wherein I have covered this concept of creating an endpoint into cloud, which is AWS and Azure, and then downloading and installing Falcon sensor on that endpoint, and then validating by navigating back to the Falcon console, looking into host management to validate whether my endpoint is visible or not, whether my endpoint is reporting into the console or not. That's what we are going to do. And that's what I expect you to do this week. And I will also cover that part on Saturday when we resume the session. But I will give you that information beforehand so that you can also do some practice over the next 5 days. Is everyone with me on this?
Yes, Ravi. Ravi, can you please share this Word document also where you are pasting and with the PPTs which you showed
So what
for
document?
this
I will
documents?
upload it into the SharePoint or wait. So
Yeah.
that is all for today that we want to cover. And I'll see you all in the next session, guys.